Hi, my name is Ann Edenfield-Sweet. I'm the Executive Director and the founder of Wings for Life International. And we have a wonderful opportunity today to learn about the Bill of Rights from not only a UNM law professor, but from one of her students who graduates this Saturday from law school and already has a job as an attorney. So we are going to hear from Professor Miriam Aranjani, who teaches at UNM, and she specializes in criminal law and procedure, constitutional rights, criminal sentencing, and education law. And then Natalie Duran is our graduate who is going to be graduating on Saturday. And what is so especially touching about Natalie and why she wants to be here and why she went into law is because her father has been in and out of prison her whole life. In fact, will not even be able to attend her graduation this Saturday from law school. And so she is a child of a prisoner, and boy, talk about a role model. So I'm so excited. So let's first hear from the professor. Let's hear about our Bill of Rights. We're calling this Bill of Rights 101, so we really understand a little bit more about these Bill of Rights that we always talk about. So help me welcome. Here is Miriam.
Hello, it's such a pleasure to be with all of you today. And thank you, Anne, for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be with you. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Bill of Rights, the federal Bill of Rights that are enshrined in the United States Constitution. So in 1787, we know that our Constitution, the United States Constitution, was ratified, but there were a number of the framers who were unhappy with the fact that all that the document did was set up the structure of government, how government was supposed to function, how the judicial branch is supposed to function, how the executive branch, and how the legislative branch or Congress is supposed to function. And so 4 years later, in 1791, the Bill of Rights were ratified, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. And instead of focusing on how government was supposed to run, it focused instead on what the individual rights of the people are, what rights we enjoy as citizens and residents of the United States. And so for those of you that are joining us virtually, you should be able to find on the website a list of the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, again, ratified about 230 years ago now, that are still very much in play in our daily lives. So the First Amendment guarantees what we call GRAPES, 6 different rights, and the acronym GRAPES is a great way to remember them. It guarantees the right to petition for grievances against the government. It guarantees the right to free exercise of religion. It guarantees the right to assemble peaceably. It guarantees the right to freedom of press. It guarantees the freedom from government establishing religion or telling us that we have to follow a particular religion or follow religion at all. And then finally, and perhaps the most important one of all, is the freedom of speech. So that's the First Amendment to the Bill of Rights. Then we know there are 9 other amendments. I'll just highlight a few of them that I think would be interesting to those who are joining us today. The Second Amendment, of course, guarantees some kind of protection to bear arms. What exactly the language of that amendment means is of course, hotly contested, but it does, according to the U.S. Supreme Court in interpreting the Second Amendment, it does protect the right of the people to own a handgun in their homes for the purpose, and use a handgun in their homes for the purpose of self-defense. The Third Amendment really has no bearing today. The Fourth Amendment protects us from unreasonable searches and seizures. So in general, the way that the Supreme Court has interpreted the Fourth Amendment is that it protects us from warrantless searches and seizures. So in other words, in general, the government, law enforcement officers must have a warrant in order to search and or seize us. Now, there are lots of exceptions to that general rule requiring a warrant that the Supreme Court has developed over time. But again, it's the general default rule. The Fifth Amendment protects a number of criminal rights, including the privilege against self-incrimination. Many of you might be familiar with the Miranda Rights. Miranda v. Arizona was the Supreme Court case in which the court determined that in order for the privilege against self-incrimination enshrined in this Fifth Amendment to have meaning, we have to be warned of the right not to incriminate ourselves, not to be forced to incriminate ourselves. There are other rights, of course, including due process and freedom from double jeopardy that are enshrined in the Fifth Amendment as well. The Sixth Amendment is also protective of rights with regard to the criminal process, in particular the right to a speedy and public trial, the right to an impartial jury, and the right to be confronted with the witnesses against us. Also, most importantly, I think in many ways, is the right to assistance of counsel at all important stages of a criminal process once adversary proceedings have begun against someone in a criminal case. The Eighth Amendment, I'm going to skip over the Seventh. The Eighth Amendment guarantees us against excessive bail and excessive fines, and most importantly, it protects us against cruel and unusual punishment. Now, the words, if you see on the page, are short. There's not much detail in any of these amendments. So the real art to these protections is defined by the Supreme Court interpreting this language in the context of particular factual scenarios. And so if you're interested in learning more about these amendments, I invite you to take a look. Just go onto Google and look at cases interpreting the Eighth Amendment's ban on cruel and unusual punishment. You will find that the court has only applied that in prison and prison-like circumstances. So we might feel, for example, I teach a lot about the rights of young people in the school context, and there was an argument made that when students are treated unfairly and punished harshly in schools, including being paddled and experiencing other forms of corporal punishment, that violated the ban on cruel and unusual punishment. Well, the Supreme Court said school is not a prison or prison-like circumstance. So this protection against cruel and unusual punishment doesn't apply in schools. So that is the Eighth Amendment. And then again, the Ninth and the 10th are not so relevant to this particular discussion, but they're interesting as well. I invite you to take a look at them. I want to just quickly tell you that the New Mexico Constitution, which we know was ratified in 1911, just 11 years ago now, has an analog to these protections, the Bill of Rights protections, which is enshrined in Article 2, Sections 1 through 24. And yes, you heard me right, 1 through 24. So in the Bill of Rights for the U.S. Constitution, there are only 10 amendments. But in our state constitution here in New Mexico, there are more robust protections for a number of different rights that are not included in the U.S. Constitution. And so that's an important lesson for us about constitutional law, which is that the federal government sets a floor of rights. They just tell us, a very basic level that the federal government cannot violate. States are free to provide the exact same rights or more than that. And in some states, we do go ahead and provide more rights, both in the state constitutions and in the interpretations of the state constitutions that the courts engage in. So now, with regard to these rights, what happens when you're convicted of a criminal offense? Well, generally, if you're convicted of a misdemeanor, there isn't a repercussion in terms of losing your rights. However, if you are convicted of certain felonies, there are 3 rights here in New Mexico that are commonly withheld from people: the right to vote, the right to hold elective office, and the right to possess firearms. Now, these are not absolute bans for the rest of your life. For example, the firearm ban only applies for 10 years after somebody's had a clean record. And even in instances sometimes before the period of time that the state has set forth before you can get those rights back, you can petition the governor to ask for special relief for a number of different reasons. Maybe you've done extra community service, or you haven't committed any other offenses, or you have a family and you want to protect your family, and from where you live, there's a reason that you need to bear arms to be able to do that. So anyway, there are ways to get around these rules, but those are the three rights that generally are, at least temporarily in New Mexico, taken away once you have a felony conviction. I look forward to telling you more and answering questions. Right now, what I'd love to do is invite you to meet my fabulous former student now and soon-to-be colleague, Natalie Duran, and she's going to be too humble to tell you about herself, so I'd like to tell you a little bit more about her. She earned a bachelor's degree at the University of New Mexico and came straight to law school at the University of New Mexico School of Law, which is a very competitive school. Around the country, only 2% of attorneys are Latina. So that's one starting point for you to understand in terms of how underrepresented people of Hispanic or Latino descent are in the legal profession. Not only that, if you take into account the experience that she had with her father in jail and prison growing up, we know that that also affects the ability of most children to seek higher education. Natalie's going to tell you about how she was able to surpass all of those barriers, and I predict she's going to do amazing things in her career, and I can't wait to see what she has to share with you and also all the things she's going to accomplish.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalie. I'm so happy to be here with you guys today. I just want to share a little bit about my story with you guys. So throughout my life, a short 26 years so far, the public debate around the criminal justice system has covered everything from arrest to re-entry to tough on crime to smart on crime and everything in between. But through all of these discussions of the criminal justice system, the children who ultimately live with the consequences of their parents' incarceration are overlooked. These children have committed no crime, but the price they pay is enormous. Despite this, children of incarcerated parents are some of the most resilient children profoundly impacted by a justice system that hardly acknowledges us. It's time to share our voices and our experiences of the consequences of our unjust system so that we can lead the way to meaningful reform. So I grew up here in the Los Padillas neighborhood in Albuquerque, South Valley, and for any of you who have lived in Albuquerque, you know the bad rap that the South Valley gets. I was born and raised there. My dad has been in and out of prison my whole life since I was 3 years old. He's also battled drug addiction. Obviously, his absence took a really big toll on me throughout my life. I suffered from anxiety, depression. I had to seek out counselors. There was constant stress in my household every day as a result of my father being gone. But despite all of this, my father was very involved in my education. I like to tell the story of him checking my grades from prison. He would have my passwords to talk with my teachers and check my grades, and he would do that every week. And if I was not on track, or if I missed an assignment, or if assignment was a low grade, he was calling. He was, on the phone telling me, you need to get it together. What do you need help with? Go meet with your counselor for this. Like, he would really guide me throughout everything. Even though he was gone, I would go see him every Sunday and spend time with him, talk about school, talk about boys, talk about friends, talk about, all of the normal stuff. He was there for all of that, even though he was gone. He does the same thing for my sister now, who is 18 and is also graduating and going on to ASU. So he always just basically encouraged me that education is my ticket out and to use it as an opportunity for a better life. And so that became my goal. And since I was young, I was fixated on going to college. I didn't know how I was going to get there. My parents didn't go to college, so they didn't know how to help me get there, but they always supported me. They always encouraged me to seek out help and find people who could help me get there. So I had really good mentors in school, in middle school, and high school. Particularly, I had two two teachers who were adamant about me going to college, who helped me apply for scholarships, who helped me do my college applications. They basically showed me the way to everything. I had no idea how college worked. I didn't even know what a syllabus was. I didn't know how to register for courses. I didn't know how to pay for it. I didn't know really anything. I would ask, other students. I would ask professors. I would go meet with my advisor. And so along this way, I met a really good mentor also in college. She was the head of the criminology department at UNM, and she told me, I had always known I wanted to go to law school. I just, like my previous experience with undergrad, I didn't know how I was going to get there. I'd heard that it was very competitive. I had heard it was very hard. Obviously, coming from my background, I felt like the odds were stacked against me. I didn't know if I was going to get accepted, but this one professor became my mentor, and she wrote letters of recommendation for me. She helped me write my law school application. She really pushed me, and when I got in, it was like a dream come true for me. I mean, I always knew I would get there, but children of incarcerated parents don't have many resources available to them. And so it was just a matter of being mentally strong and trying to, push myself, as well as trying to find the people who are going to help me. And so I really credit my mom, my dad, and my mentors. Professor Anjani was also one of my mentors in law school that helped me throughout law school. That was another learning experience for me and another thing I had to learn. So I really credit all my mentors and my family for really helping me get to this point, because if I didn't have that, I could have easily followed the same path that so many of my family members had gone down for generation and generation. So it was just very important to me to break that cycle, and I also have a young daughter, so I want her to, see her mom succeed and, see me overcome the struggles that I faced as a kid. I don't want her to face the same struggles, so I consciously make the choice every single day to show her different, so I can break that cycle in my family, because that is very important to me. This is a huge problem nationally, but this year I got to focus on research specifically to New Mexico. I know it's obviously an undercount, but as of right now, in my research, I found that 10% of children in New Mexico have a child with an incarcerated parent. And so that number to me, also New Mexico ranked last in child well-being. So those statistics, really just grabbed me, and they really told me that our state needs to really take this problem into consideration, because it's going to affect future crime rates, future workforces, the socioeconomic status of New Mexico. And I just feel like if we don't solve this problem, more people are going to continue to fall on this path, and it's not going to be good for our state. So I hope to bring awareness to this problem and to hopefully help some reform here in New Mexico in the future.
Okay, well, we still have some more time here, so I'm going to ask some questions of both of them. So why don't you step over here, and we'll come over to the microphone here. And so let's see. I was taking some notes here, but let's go to the professor first.
Sure.
And so let's talk about a little bit more about some of the rights that people lose when they do get incarcerated. So step over here, and you, Natalie, you stand right here so all three of us can. Let's see. I'll go this way. We'll go over this way just a little bit more.
You come here.
You want me over here? Okay. There we go.
Okay.
Okay. So. Okay.
Right. So, and your question was, what are some of the rights that people lose when they're incarcerated?
Talk a little bit more about that, because, like, if you've got a gun in the home.
Yeah.
So what happens now? The gun is owned by dad, but now the gun is in the home. So does then the wife lose the gun because dad had the gun? What happens to the gun? Let's just say something about that.
Oh.
I mean, as an example, what?
Yeah, that is a very good question. And to be honest, there are a lot of collateral consequences, they're called,
Yes.
of imprisonment that involve not just, I think, Natalie has talked a little bit about what happens to families when people suffer the consequences of imprisonment. And one of them is that they have to be careful about their own decisions
Yes.
Unfortunately. And so now, if you could imagine a situation in which there could be a way for the wife to retain ownership of the gun separately from, but generally as a condition of release, there can't be a gun in the home even. So could she keep it somewhere else?
Yeah.
Another family member's home or something like that. That could be a remedy. But in general, you got to be. That's one of the things we talk about in my criminal procedure classes. How much, unfortunately, the people that are around us, we're influenced, and our decisions end up, and our lives end up being influenced by their decisions. And their actions.
So I interrupted and threw something at you. So let's talk about when somebody does get arrested and the rights that they've lost. Expand on some of those again.
Sure.
So people, because I know we're going to have some audience of our folks behind bars tonight, and we want to have, I know you're going to ask these questions, so we might as well ask them now. So, okay.
Okay, so I mentioned three in particular
Yes.
here in New Mexico: the right to vote, the right to serve in public office, and then the right to bear arms. I think the one that people are most concerned about is the right to bear arms. We know that in New Mexico, we're actually one of the states that has the highest rates of gun ownership. And also we have, some of the most lax laws in terms of gun regulations in the country. And so that right is one that I think particularly affects people's lives, and one that and that's because we have, a lot of parts of the state are rural.
Yes.
And
Ranches,
ranches.
They need a gun
That's
because
right.
of wolves coming and attacking their cattle or something like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or hunting for food. I mean, there are lots of people who rely on guns. So, of course, that argument, and then even, in urban settings like Albuquerque, let's say, people sometimes feel still like they need to defend themselves in particular neighborhoods. For example, they may feel like the police are not likely to come and help them if they're in a sticky situation. Again, with children that I've worked with, through the years, and here in Albuquerque, but in other places as well, sometimes young people even report that in order to feel safe walking from home to school, that they need to be armed. So this right to bear arms is probably the one that people care the most about. I think a very important one that we should be concerned about is also the right to vote. It's very important for all people, regardless of one or two or however many acts we may have undertaken that breach societal norms. You still should have a voice. You still should have the opportunity to weigh in on who's representing you. And because they're making decisions that affect you, why shouldn't you be able to vote? So that's one that I think is also very important.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's very, very important. And so I know laws because I've been fighting for the right to vote for a long time here. And so is that generally up to the individual state then?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, the federal government makes their own rules. So we're talking about state offenses.
Right.
And most crime is at the state level and adjudicated at the state level. So yeah, we're talking about, every state can make their own rules.
Yeah.
And there's some really interesting, if you're interested in comparing, or if you're listening from another state, you want to know what your state does, there is an organization that assesses the collateral consequences of incarceration, and they have a 50-state survey that's pretty up to date. I think it's just maybe a couple years old now, maybe right before the pandemic was the last update that they did. And they keep track of all the different state laws with regard to voting and other relinquishment of rights.
Okay. Then I'll go back and forth here.
Sure.
Okay. So your father was instrumental in your life, even though at 3 he went into prison, and now really you're graduating and he's still not home. What recommendations would you have for children, your parents that are listening to this, and to help their children from 3rd grade on? So your dad could only do so much when he made a phone call to you and your mom received it, or you received it. But what did you do yourself to make such a difference? Because you had to have made some choices in your life early on. And so share with our audience, what did you do in elementary school, in middle school, and in high school that brought you to this point today?
Yeah, so I think social support has been the biggest thing for me. In every step of my education, I have latched on to whether it's a teacher or a guidance counselor or even a friend who had a parent who was incarcerated as well. We're going through the same thing. I've always been able to latch on to people and you know, be vulnerable with people and tell people like, hey, this is what I'm going through. I don't want to be stuck here forever. Can you help me get to where I need to get? And I've always just been open to learning and asking questions and just figuring it out. I've never took no for an answer. It was always, I knew what my goal was, and however I was going to get there, I just asked.
Well, we teach those 40 developmental assets, and you looked at some of them. In fact, on our placemat, I'm going to show you, if you go to our website, you will find this placemat, and then on the back of the placemat, you will see the Bill of Rights. We've got a list of all of those. But you picked on some of the assets that you thought were key. You listed family support. The family life provides high levels of love and support. You mentioned a little bit about how your dad did that too, and your mom. You also listed positive family communication. Family members communicate positively, and an individual is willing to seek advice and counsel from family members, which it sounds like you certainly did, and from many others. And then I asked at number 3, person receives support from 3 or more non-parent adults. And all of these assets are really, really key. So expound on those just a little bit more. I'll leave it right here if you want to look at those.
Yeah, so there were obviously times where, you know, I felt discouraged, and like I said, I felt like the odds were always stacked against me, and, you know, things were hard, but like I said, I would find somebody that I knew had overcame it or had been successful in their life and just basically ask them, how can I get there? What do I need to do? I just literally always ask questions, and I still do to this day. I could just say the biggest thing is just don't take no for an answer. If you have a goal, you can get to that goal. I know there's not very many resources for children with incarcerated parents here right now, unfortunately, but I would just say if they can first just set a goal and tell themselves this is where I want to get, and you know, just like I said, find people who can help you get there. I think that's what they have to do.
And if I could add something to
Sure,
what Natalie
please
mentioned,
do.
I'm hoping that some of you listening are thinking, I want to be like Natalie. How do I get there? How do I get to law school? And so what I want to tell you is that the first step is to go to college. In the United States, you first have to earn a bachelor's degree, and you can study anything you want. You could study physical education. You could study physics. You could study criminology. There's no one right major to be able to apply to law school. You just have to get there and do well. Do as well as you possibly can. And then there's an exam that you have to take. It's called the Law School Admissions Test, LSAT. You don't have to worry about that now. You'll take that, you know, at the end of college or even after college. We have lots of students who come to our law school after having, you know, lived a lot of life. They come in their 30s or 40s or 50s. If you're a parent and you're watching this and you're thinking, I've always wanted to go to law school, it's not too late. We welcome you. Go to the admissions office website at the University of New Mexico School of Law or any other, you know, wherever you're joining us from. You can find the Law School Admissions Council is the organization that administers that test. They give that test, the LSAT, and they also have lots of helpful information in there about how to apply to law school. And then once you're thinking about going to law school, you should absolutely reach out to the schools that you're interested in attending and go and visit and meet with people, meet with students, meet with professors, meet with anybody you can find there to find out what is it like and will I be embraced and supported in this place.
Yes, I think that's the biggest thing is just to feel supported where you are. Every school I have been to, like I said, I've been able to be vulnerable with my teachers and share with them, this is what I'm going through. And many of them have responded positively. Like, I can't say I've ever had a teacher shun me or stigmatize me or tell me, you know, you're never going to be anything. I've always had people who have encouraged my path and have really helped me get there. And I really thank every single one of them.
Well, thanks to both of you. This has been incredible, and what an inspiration you are. And you are too. What a wonderful teacher you must be. Well, I'm going to close with a story here, so I'll step in here. I was trying to think, well, how am I going to close this one? And so I thought, you know, we're all proud to be an American, in America and Americans. And so I thought I'm going to just share something. The author is unknown. It's called I Am the Flag of America. I am the flag of the United States of America. My name is Old Glory. I fly atop the world's tallest buildings. I stand watch in America's halls of justice. I fly majestically over institutions of learning. I stand guard with power in the world. Look up and see me. I stand for peace, honor, truth, and justice. I stand for freedom. I am confident, I am arrogant, and I am proud. When I am flown with my fellow banners, my head is a little bit higher, my colors a little bit truer. I bow to no one. I am recognized all over the world. I am worshiped. I am saluted. I am loved. I'm revered. I am respected, and I am also feared. I have fought in every battle of every war for more than 200 years. I was flown at Valley Forge, Gettysburg, Shiloh, Appomattox. I was there at the San Juan Hill, the trenches of France, Rome, and the beaches of Normandy. Guam, Okinawa, Korea, Vietnam, they all know me. I was there. I led my troops. I was dirty, battle-worn, and tired, but my soldiers cheered me on, and I was proud. I have been burned, torn, trampled on the streets of countries I have helped set free. It does not hurt, for I am invincible. I have been soiled upon, burned, and when it's done by those whom I've served in battle, it hurts. But I shall overcome, for I am strong. I have slipped the bonds of earth and stood watch over the uncharted frontiers of space from my vantage point on the moon. I have borne silent witness to all of America's finest hours. But my finest hours are yet to come, when I am torn into strips and used as bandages for my wounded comrades on the battlefield, when I am flown at half-mast to honor my soldier, or when I lie in the trembling arms of a grieving parent at the grave of their fallen son or daughter. I am proud. Well, isn't that the America that we all want and believe in? The Bill of Rights were written for. And so I'm just so thankful you were with us tonight. We're going to go into some breakout rooms. You're going to be able to talk to both of these wonderful ladies. If you're with us on Facebook and YouTube, this is the end of this program. But I hope you'll join us next week, because we've got another great program Monday night, 6 o'clock Mountain Time. Join us and look forward to it. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a blessed night. Bye-bye.